for everyone to tune in. Unless they're watching the Richmond Hawks. Welcome, guys. Waiting for a few people to tune in, and then we'll chat about Collingwood. Welcome, everyone. Hope you've all had a great week. I know I have. It's been good just watching the replay 3 or 4 times. Let me know how many times you've watched the replay, because yeah, most of my mates have watched it at least 5 or 6 times. I don't know where they find the time, but it's been a good week. Talking about, g'day Phil, welcome David, Brad. We will talk about that. We will talk about why Jonathon Marsh is getting a gig against his team, his ex-team, when a lot of other players could have been given that chance, with Geary obviously being out with the hamstring. So we'll just wait for a few more people to tune in, and then we'll get going. Welcome everyone. Welcome Stephen. Captain, that's a good question. I think vice captain, I think, is Seb Ross. So I think that he would get the gig. Otherwise, I think Tim Membry's probably right up there as a chance as well. Hey Wade, g'day. Hey Paul. Go Saints, exactly right. Hope you've all had a great week. I reckon we get into it. Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Thursday Saints TV live preview. If you have any questions, as you guys know, because you tune in most of the time, comment it. We'll talk about it. We'll dissect it. This week, after a good win on Sunday against the Dogs, we are facing a very tough test against Collingwood. They are probably top 2, top 3 in the league of the last couple of years, obviously playing off in 2018 Grand Final. You know, very good in 2019, and 2020 they're undefeated, albeit they've beaten the Dogs, which we have, and they've played Richmond in a fairly ugly game, ending in a draw. Going into this one, I think, personally, from my end, I don't see any reason why we can't go to the G and win. Collingwood, it's hard to gauge how good they were in round 1 because it was against the Dogs, and we saw what we did to the Dogs, so there's really kind of a question mark on their credentials. Not taking anything away from Collingwood's win in round 1 or our win in round 2, but it's too early to tell where the Dogs are at. They could be just a really shit team this year. We don't know. But what I do think, where I think we can exploit them is if it does rain. And I know that a lot of people have commented saying that it's going to be a wet weather game, 4:35 on Saturday. It's going to be a slog. There's supposed to be potential thunderstorms, at the MCG. So we're away from Marvel, our cozy abode with a roof. We're out in the open. It's going to be a slog. It's not going to be as clean, and there's going to be a lot of ground ball. And I based on what we did against the Dogs, we didn't win that much in the air. Obviously, players like Carlisle, Max King, Membry had their few moments in the air, and Roll Marshall taking a few marks. But I think most of the time, the damage was done when the ball hit the deck and we had fast hands out of a pack, and we're able to run in waves towards our goal, almost overwhelming the Dogs. There were so many numbers around the ball that no matter what happened, there was a Saints player there. And I think that's critical against Collingwood, because Collingwood faced Richmond last week in a slog. So we don't know how much of an effect that game's going to have on them, but they've played a few games at the G already, or at least one game at the G. They're comfortable there. We don't play there very often. But, when people ask me, you'd have a better chance at Marvel Stadium playing the Pies, I actually think we have a better chance at the G. I think it's going to be a benefit for us, because I think with our free-flowing style that we're going under Ratan and the openness that we want to play, MCG's bigger, it's wider. And we know as Saints fans, when we've played Melbourne there recently, we've had some of our best wins at the MCG because of the vastness of it. We've been able to, Richo loved to switch the ball, and that we could actually effectively do that at the MCG. We can't really do it at Marvel because it's more tight, more of a congested, contested type of game. So I think, personally, at the MCG we're gonna see more of that game, and I think that's going to hurt Collingwood. I think, Collingwood have brought in Stevenson for his first game of the year, so obviously he's an elite small forward. He's fast, he puts on pressure. 100% that's what they needed him this week, because they saw how well we kind of counteracted the Dogs last week with their lack of forward line pressure. And Collingwood are known for a pressure team. But In the first 2 games of the season, they're ranked 15th for tackles, I think, or tackles inside 50. For their pressure acts in general, they're ranked 15th. So, right now, talking about, if I said, Collingwood are a great pressure team, it'd be kind of false based on the first 2 games of this season. In general, last year, the year before, Collingwood's one of the best pressure teams in the competition. And Buckley has instilled them with that go at the ball carrier, constant pressure style game. That's something that looks like we're looking to do. So it's going to be interesting to see if Collingwood's pressure's up, we're going to be, tested. If it's not, and based on the stats, and, stats are just stats, they're not going to decide the future or anything. If they're low and we're on, they could be in trouble, because the difference between us and Richmond, and I'm not saying we're better than Richmond. Don't quote me on this. Richmond love to hack the ball forward. They don't love to be clean with it. They love to hack it, get numbers around the ball, reset around the stoppage, and go again, and go again, and go again, until they eventually break the damn wall, and then the goals start flowing, they take over, their pressure just consumes the opposition, and they run away with it. I think where we can get Collingwood is that, unlike Richmond, based on last week, our kicking efficiency was 76%. It's very high. If we can pressure them and then be clean with it, and get it on the outside to Zach Jones, to Brad Hill, to Billings, who was in phenomenal form, even Dan Hanbury, to Seb Ross, who's, slowly playing within himself now, not bombing it like we're so used to, they're going to be in trouble. And a quick shout out to a Collingwood podcast I listened to, Pies Nation, very good Collingwood podcast. I listened to the part where they previewed playing us, and all of the hosts on the show, I think there's 3 or 4 of them, all of them said that they need Darcy Moore to go to Max King, because Max King is scary. They think they're actually terrified of a guy that's only played 2 games. How good is it to have a player that's only played 2 games, that an opposition that's a top 4 team have actually said, shit, we need our best intercept mark, our best defender, best tall defender to go to a second gamer. And that is the benefit of playing Max King, because he takes a good defender, and that opens up Tim Membry. I think, obviously Jeremy Howe's probably going to go to Tim Membry, but with, the headaches that a Max King causes a Collingwood defence already is phenomenal. And we know that we don't want to be too tall going into this game, because it's obviously going to be wet, and we'll talk about Jonathon Marsh being that player, and why did we bring him in over someone else, over maybe a Jimmy Webster. I know a lot of comments have said that, but Max King is phenomenal beneath his feet. So wet weather or dry weather, I don't think it's an issue for Max King. A lot of talls, when it's wet, they're gone. Mason Cox for Collingwood, gone. Tom Litch for Richmond, when it's wet, gone. Even Kennedy at West Coast, when it's wet, not that good. Max King looks like it won't affect him, and I think we'll see a lot of ground ball from Max King. And if we've got Butler, Loney, Gresham roaming around the forward 50, which I think there will be, because it's going to be a wet game, and they're going to have to be. It's going to have to be a ground ball, small style game. Max King is going to be feeding the ball out to them, and I think that's going to be critical. Now on to the inclusion of Jonathon Marsh. I know a lot of you guys commenting already aren't really a bit shocked by it, and I was surprised by it. We kind of talked about in the podcast that maybe Jonathon Marsh gives a bit of X factor. I think that's what Ratan's going for. He's going for an unorthodox but kind of unpredictable, exciting matchup. Jonathon Marsh played forward in the pre-season. If you remember, he played forward a bit of the game against Hawthorn in the first Marsh game, and he kicked a ripper goal. He was explosive. He's very fast. He's tall. He's physical. He can take a mark. He's a decent kick. He's got a bit more X factor, unpredictability about him. And I think playing him against Collingwood, it puts them off a little bit. They probably thought, Geary, Webster, Geary, Battle. But Jonathon Marsh, he's another one of those players where he's tall, but he can play small. He's good beneath his feet. And if you watch a few of his highlights from Collingwood days, he's very good in defence. He offers that versatility like Battle. But I think he could almost be a more effective wet weather forward than Battle. Battle, if he comes in, he plays defence only. And if he plays, we've got Carlisle, Dougal Howard, then you've got Battle, you've got Cal Wilkie. You're probably too top heavy in that backline in a wet weather game. That's 4 talls, 4 key talls. And I think, you need 3, maybe just max 2, but you're not going to go for 4 in a wet weather game, especially when you look at Collingwood's forward line. You've got players like Jordan De Goey, not that tall, Jamie Elliott, Darcy Cameron, Brown, Myercheck and Stevenson. They're all medium to small. They're not tall. They don't have a tall forward line. So it makes no sense to bring Josh Battle in at this point. I don't think. Comment if you disagree with me, but I think that Marsh offers more versatility at the ground ball than Battle. Battle's very good in the air, is a very good kick, but when it comes to, say it's pissing down, it's hailing, it's at the G, it's muddy weather, Marsh is that sort of guy that's going to get on the ground and get the ball out. I haven't seen any evidence that Battle is that player, but it's another proven week for players like Battle, Webster, Dunstan, these sort of blokes, Robertson even, they're not getting a look in. But I'm glad that Ratan's not always going for the most predictable option. He's mixing it up, he's testing the opposition, and even when the Saints posted their team on the website, their team's got, all the magnets are all over the place. Hanbury's listed at centre-half forward. He's obviously not going to play centre-half forward, but I think it shows the little mind games that Brett Ratten's bringing to the table. He's stirring up the opposition. He's bringing in Marsh over Geary. And from all reports, Marsh has trained really well. And I like that Ratten's rewarding players that train well, not just for someone that's a straight fit. Webster hasn't played any competitive football for a long time. You have to remember, he got injured. He didn't play a lot of last year. There's no real VFL this year so far for him to get fitness. There's only scratch matches and training. It's a bit of a risk. I think Marsh having a full pre-season, being able to play forward, back, he's good on the ground ball, he's fast, he's explosive. I think that's a good pick for me. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with where he plays, whether it's back or forward, but I'm tipping he's going to play forward and roam up to half forward towards the wing. And if we need him in the back line, he's a player that can go there, but I don't think he starts there because we've got Wilkie, Howard and Carlisle there, and to me that's enough of a tall back line to cover the Collingwood players. Let's go through some of these comments. I know a lot of you guys probably disagree with the fact that Marsh is getting a go, but I'm just going to scroll all the way to the top. Dean's asking, are we a bit top heavy? Looking at this, our talls, if we go, I've got the team next to me here, so just don't mind me looking over here. Kel Wilkie, he's probably not a tall backman, but he's tall enough. You got Wilkie, Carlisle, Dougal Howard, obviously Rowan Marshall, Paddy Ryder, Max King, Tim Membry. I wouldn't classify him as tall. That's 7 there I've already talked about. Jonathon Marsh, obviously another one, that's 8. And yeah, look, there's 8 there, but you've got to take into account that, Max King's very good beneath his feet. Tim Membry's very versatile. Paddy Ryder's probably going to play ruck and just forward. Rowan Marshall's good beneath his feet. He's going to roam. Then you've got Jonathon Marsh playing forward, back, going to roam, good beneath his feet. And then you've got Dougal Howard and Jake Carlisle, who you can't really take out of this team because we had a good win. The back line settled. It looked as clean and as stable as it has been in years. You don't want to mess with that. And when you lose your captain, Geary, who's a small... it makes sense to bring in someone like Webster, but I'm going to back Rats. So far, most of the decisions he's made in his ins and outs, they've paid off. People question-marked Patton. People question-mark, shouldn't Webster be ahead of Ben Patton? After last week, trust me, a lot of Saints fans have realised how much of a valuable asset Ben Patton is in that backline. If you watch the replay, he doesn't have that many touches, but there are so many nice darting kicks out of that backline to a leading player that I know for a fact a Battle probably doesn't go for. Maybe even a Geary doesn't go for. But Patton does, and he pulls it off. He's a great kick, and I think internally they value him very highly. Clearly, there's something about Marsh that the team and the coaches value, so I'm going to back them on this. And if we win, we're all going to be saying, amazing job, right call, bringing in Marsh. So I don't think we're too top-heavy. Stevens asked, who's going to be the captain? I answered this at the start, but I'm pretty sure Seb Ross is vice-captain. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he'll probably get the gig. Go Saints, a lot of people are saying, go Saints. I hope we clean them up. Yeah, this is the ultimate test, guys. If we come out here and put on a performance and we win, unbelievable going into the Richmond game. If we get hammered last week against the Dogs, doesn't look as good. If we go in and compete and we give them one hell of a game and we lose because they're slightly better and it's nothing on our end, that's good too. I just don't want us to go there and have a performance where we play for a quarter or two and the game's over. I genuinely think we're a big chance here. You look at the team we fielded last year with Jack Nunes, with Matty Parker, with so many different players. Like, there's about 15 different players from the time we played on this weekend to the last time we played Collingwood. 15 changes, and at three-quarter time, I think we're less than a kick down. So this team is 10 times stronger than the team that almost beat them last year. So if we can't do it with this team, I don't know when we can, but this is a good time to play them. Always a good showdown between Saints and Pies, says Brenda. Come on, the mighty Saints, says Paul. Jones was massive on the weekend, says Jace. Yes, he was. And on the G, I cannot wait for him and Brad Hill to break the lines, open up the game. No doubt, this team, this Saints team, we can assume that going into this, they're not afraid of Collingwood. They're going to give them credit, but they're not going to give them so much credit that they're afraid of them. They're going to go at them. They're going to take the game on. And I cannot wait to see this team continue to grow. You know, I don't think we're afraid of playing teams like Collingwood and Richmond anymore. Players like Jones, Brad Hills, even Dougal Howards, Dan Butlers, they've come from some winning teams, some premiership teams, some premiership players. Dan Hanbury on top of that. So they're here to win. They're not here to just pick up a paycheck and move on. They're here to play big games at the G against big Victorian teams and get big wins. And I can't wait to see how they do on the weekend. Tim says, if our tackling pressure is like Sunday, we'll really shake the Pies. 100%. We are the highest tackling team in the league. Best inside 50 tackling team. We're third for disposals. We are the number one inside 50 efficiency rated team. And I think we have in the top 3 or the top 4 of tacklers inside 50, we have Jack Loney, Dan Butler, and Jack Billings in the top 3. So when it's a wet weather game and you've got 3 players inside the top 3 that tackle inside 50, you're in a very good position. Where can we exploit them, says Xavier. I've always questioned Collingwood's forward line. I've always questioned that they don't have a gun forward that they can go to that kicks them bags. I know they've got DeGoey, but we're outside of DeGoey and maybe Stevenson. They've got Stephenson, however you pronounce it. Myercheck, he's not bad. He's serviceable. You've got Brown, unproven. Jamie Elliott, who's proven but, inconsistent lately. Darcy Cameron as well. So, in 2018, that's what they lacked in the grand final. That's why they lost to West Coast. They didn't have a power forward that took the game and won them the game. They have Mason Cox, who had a phenomenal prelim that year. But I just think that with our rebound off the half back line with Hunter Clark and Ben Long, I think we can exploit them there. If we can get the ball to ground, I think we can run off them and spread. And that's not something you say a lot about a Collingwood team where you can get them, but I think that our pace worries them. And I don't know if you guys go on Big Footy or you've heard of Big Footy, but it's the biggest online forum or chat rooms for AFL fans. I went into the Collingwood one and had a read, and a lot of them, I'm not bullshitting, a lot of them were saying that the Saints looked fast. We need to change the team to match their speed, because if they get on a roll, we don't know if we can stop them. And I'm not even kidding. Go on there, have a read. A lot of them are nervous, and that is amazing. I'm not hearing anyone from Collingwood saying, yeah, this is going to be a cakewalk. We're going to smash the shit out of them. They're actually like, I watched the game against the Dogs on the weekend, and geez, the Saints look good. That's something we've not heard of for a long time. They were saying, like, do we tag Zach Jones? Do we tag Brad Hill? Do we tag Billings? They had no idea who to tag. The fact that they have headaches like that is awesome. But again, we're facing players like Pendlebury, Taylor Adams, Steele Sidebottom, Brodie Grundy. That's another one. If Paddy Ryder and Rowan Marshall can get on top of Brodie Grundy, it's going to be a huge, huge, factor in the who wins the game. If we can rotate them, work him over, and then push forward and exploit him that way, and he doesn't do that to us, and we negate him, huge chance, guys. Absolutely huge chance. Webster being forgotten about, and why can't Battle get a spot in the 22? That's Brian. Don't know, but there's something internally that the coaches see in other players that those players are not proving. So I'll back them any day of the week. We'll see how they go. So far, in the first 2 weeks, I'd say they've done it. And, Jack Sinclair, another midfielder that is, a workhorse, could exploit the space on the MCG. He's not even getting a look in. So the amount of, pressure on positions is awesome. It's great to have this sort of pressure and competition. Sure, glad they didn't axe the 2 ruck system. That may be the difference in winning and losing. It could well be, Colin. That's a good point. You don't want to have just Marshall taking on Grundy, because last year, although Marshall did okay, Grundy was best on ground, got 100 or nearly 200 Supercoach, nearly 50 hitouts, and he had like 26 disposals. So you need to be able to have versatility then. I think Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder against Grundy is a very, very big factor in the way this game's going to be played out. Ari says Jack Billings is second in the column in years. He's kicked 5 goals. I think there's a couple of players on 6, but it's interesting that, after 2 weeks, there's a Saint already in the Coleman. Jordan says Marsh is the type of player who would excel in the wet. Battle is no doubt the more skillful player, but Marsh's raw athleticism would be a powerful asset, particularly if he plays a defensive role on one of their backmen. That is an awesome comment, Jordan. That is exactly right. I think that Battle under the Marvel roof, no doubt, better mark, better kick, better player in general on paper. When it's ugly and it's wet and it's a ground ball, Marsh is very, very athletic. He's got great aerobic capabilities, and I think this is where he'll blossom. If this was under the roof, I dare say that Battle or a Webster would get a go. Luke says winning teams should be left alone. Balance. Even the worst players, Carla and Caulfield, deserve another go. Yep, exactly right. I'm glad that the only change was a forced change. If Geary wasn't injured, I dare say this team would be unchanged. We'd be going into Collingwood exactly the same team. And it's been a long time since we've been able to say, well, that team needs no changing. There's always, a pet hate or a player that we pick on that we want out. In this team right now, every player is playing their role and they're doing exactly what Ratan wants them to do. And there is no reason why we need to change it. So I think that's a good comment as well. Stephen says we have a great chance to put 2 in a row together. 100%. I said it pre-season and last week. I want to pinch a win from either Collingwood or Richmond. And if I had to pick out of the 2, I think the bigger chance is this Saturday. But why not say both? Why not? F the season. We can do whatever we want, guys. Brisbane went from shit to, semi-finalist or whatever last year in a very quick transition. There is no reason why in this off-season with all of these new players that we can't excel faster than people think. We've already seen the chemistry. They look like they've been playing together for years. There is no reason why we can't beat Collingwood and challenge or even beat Richmond the week after. Radley says Rat's strategic brain is such a stark contrast to how we played and planned before. I agree with that. Big difference to how we played under Richo. When did we last beat the Pies? I'm tipping an upset Go Saints. That's from Caroline. I think the last time we beat the Pies would have been, I'd say 2017. I think it was still when Rue was playing, and it was at Marvel, and it was an ugly slog. I think we won by about 15 to 20 points, a low-scoring game. Martin says Jack Billings for next captain. Geary struggles to be in our best 22. Statement game says Fatty, exactly right. Round 1, we were 5 goals up. We should have won. Round 2, we come out guns blazing. It should have been a 50-60 point win. It was lucky it was only 39 in the end for the Dogs. This game is the game that people will take credit, because I said it in the podcast and it pissed me off all week. All the media outlets are talking about is, geez, the Dogs are shit. Geez, what's wrong with the Dogs? What, is Bontempelli gone shit because he's captain? Who cares? All they do is give credit. They just talk down about the other team that we beat. They never give credit to the Saints. And we all know this. Every time we beat a good team, there's always another issue with them. It's never, shit, the Saints are coming. If Collingwood, everyone talked up Collingwood after beating the Dogs in round 1. They didn't, I can't remember all week reading any good articles from any of the journos about, geez, the Saints are doing all right. On the couch, they talked us up a little bit. Gary Lyon had a few nice words, but he said he was unconvinced yet. And that's fair enough. So this is the game where we make sure that the AFL world knows, shit, St Kilda, they're looking all right, They're going to be a hard team to beat, and that's what we want. We don't want last week to be an aberration, to be a one-off, to be a fluke. We want it to be the start of something. Leonis says, need to win this to send a message to the rest of the comp. Exactly right. Steele to shut down Pendles. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see anyone really tag. I think Steele's going to go to someone like a Pendles or a side bottom, but I don't think he's going to tag them like he would have last year. I think Ratan really enjoys putting Steele in the forward line. We saw it last week, playing out of the square, kicking a goal, taking a good grab. I think Rewalt or someone on the Fox Footy commentary said that he almost looked like a full forward. You know, he's got that build about him. So if he goes on a Pendles or a side bottom, I don't think it's going to be in a defensive way. I think it's going to be in a way that exploits them and makes them accountable. If Steele goes forward, you know, Pendlebury doesn't go forward and kick goals, but Steele, he can. So if they're a matchup, Pendlebury needs to make sure that he follows Steele to the forward line. Because if he doesn't, Steele's going to kick a couple of goals and, you know, he could turn the game around by just doing that. 13 different players from last year versus the Pies. Almost all changes are huge. 13 different players. Collingwood are playing a completely different team. And if I was Nathan Buckley, you'd be having a bit of a headache because you've got 13 new players that Collingwood didn't face last year that he doesn't really know how they're going to play against them or together. It's a lot of unpredictability with this Kilda lineup. And I think that's one of the major benefits this year is that a lot of the teams we're going to face haven't played a lot of these players in a St Kilda shirt. So that sort of guessing that the other team has to do, major benefit for us. Cameron says, to be honest, I think Collingwood aren't as strong as they are last year, and we are stronger than we were last year. If we could keep up with them for 3 quarters last season, then we can go 4 quarters with them this season. Good call. Very good call. Where's Matty Parker? We've got too many good smalls doing their job. You know, we've got Jack Loney, who had a great game last week. You know, Jade Gresham resting there. You've got Dan Butler, who had a phenomenal game. We don't really have any room for him at the moment, but, you know, he's a good player, and I think he'll get his chance at some point. Donna says, love Brett Ratton's game plan. Finally, we are playing the running game. Keep up the great work, boys. Go Saints. Good comment. Parker will struggle to get a game this year, says Sam. Cameron says, love Saints. Seeing Saints implement a lot of spear kicks into the game instead of booting the ball and hoping for the best. That's going to be a big factor in how we beat Collingwood. We need to take the game on. Collingwood do love to go down wide. They like to cut it wide, then bring it in. I'd love us to just go full throttle, down the middle, and just almost treat them with no respect. You know, we need to make sure that we acknowledge they're a good team, they can hurt you. But I want us to go out there and just be like, you know, we're not afraid of you. We're going to play our game. You're going to chase us all day. And if you beat us, fine. But we're going to give you a hard game. And I think that's the sort of approach we're going to take. Finn says, this game is primed for Marshall to stake his claim as one of the dominant rucks in the league. God, imagine that. Saints by 3 points, says Adam. Isn't Grundy injured? I mean, he's listed. So if he's injured, then 2 players, Ryder and Marshall, better hurt him even more. Luke's asking if Marshy's got a tune for Butler yet. Butler's Pantry. I don't know. I'll let you know in the next video. I'll chat to him in the podcast next week, and if Butler has a big one again on the weekend, 100% we'll get him to sing a song on the podcast. We need some more chance this year, especially with no crowds. Billings for best and fairest, says Drew. Why is there so much love for Parker? Did I miss something with him, says Blair. I guess it's just, Parker played a lot of games last year and suddenly he's out of the picture, so it's just a bit of a surprise. But I think it's the competition for spots, that's what it is. Players like him are going to be pushed out, and that's the sort of problem that Collingwoods and Richmonds and West Coasts and Brisbane's, to a lesser extent, they have that problem. They've got too many good players in all positions that, they have to drop them. Who goes to Stevenson? Blair is asking. Based on the back line, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like that's a tough one. Maybe a Ben Long or a Ben Patton. Maybe not a Ben Patton. I think Ben Long could go to him. He's got the pace. He's got the marking capability. I think Ben Long would be interesting on Stevenson. He's got the pace. And lastly, Andrew says, I think we can win. And Sainers, I think we can win. This is an absolutely huge opportunity for us to to test ourselves against one of the benchmarks in the competition of the last couple of years. I'm absolutely excited. You know, I'm pumped. I'm hoping that, you know, God, I've already had visions of coming on live post MCG win on Saturday night. You know, it's going to be amazing. I'll drive down to the G and clap the Saints. You know, yeah. We need to make sure that we make a statement. We can't go out there and think it's just going to happen again. I know Ratan keeps them on their game, and I know he's not going to make them take this for granted. The form's too, you know, we've only had one good game. 1.5 good games under Rats this season. We need to keep it going. We need to keep momentum going. There's only 17 games in this season. 10 wins, say, you know, would get you in the finals. So if we can get 2 down going to Richmond and Carlton, that's huge. You know, every win is massive. So, especially when you're playing Collingwood, who are, you know, a win and a draw. There's 6 points. We're on 4. You overtake a team like Collingwood, you know, it's huge. Huge. And that would consolidate our position in the top 8 for another week at least. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I think we're a huge chance. I'm not going to give a tip or anything because it's so hard to tip. We're only, I think, $1.50 in the betting, which is, I don't bet or anything, but I noticed it from Sportsbet. Pretty low odds. We were $2.40 against the Dogs last week. So pretty much the same odds from the Dogs game. So I would say absolutely big chance in this. I'd prefer it if it wasn't raining at the G. I think that evens it up even more. Collingwood are very good in the wet. They've obviously played a lot of games at the G, that being their home ground, so they're used to that, the dew, the wet, those conditions. But I think with the players that we've got a big chance. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for watching again. Hopefully in the next video we'll be talking about a big win against Collingwood. But until then, enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy Richmond. I think Hawthorn are on tonight. And then we've got big game on Saturday. So I'll see you guys then. Take care. Go Saints.